Here we go. Hello and welcome everyone. People are still trickling in and we have the majority of our panelists are here. So we're going to get started. My name is Jennifer Petrilli. I am the Managing Director of the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning. And we're so delighted to be having this webinar, this panel discussion here today. So thank you for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to send it over to the chair of the board of the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning, Larry O'Farrell, who's going to do a brief introduction. Larry.
Hi. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all and to thank you for joining us today. I want to express our gratitude to our sponsors, very important, the Canada Council for the Arts and the Azrieli Foundation for making this webinar series possible. Thanks also to our panelists who are arriving at various squares here for sharing valuable experience with us, and to Jennifer for organizing the series. Our previous webinars are all available on our website. They offer valuable insights into synchronous online arts instruction, simplifying social media, and making a website that sings. So these are all great. And today we will be learning about two different approaches to delivering meaningful arts experiences within this global pandemic. I just want to take a moment to say the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning is deeply concerned about the discoverability of arts and learning programs. We believe that the arts are essential to Canada's well-being, and your leadership in this sector will make an enormous difference to the recovery of children, youth, and lifelong learners during the pandemic and for years to come. So thank you for joining us, and back to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Also want to introduce Lynne Mette, who is our newest member of the team, and she is our communications and research coordinator. She just joined us this month, so we're so excited, and she's doing a great job. So that is us. I'm going to do a very brief overview of some of the tools that we have as a network for discoverability. And many of you likely are familiar with us and with our map. And so I won't go into great detail about that, but I do want to make sure, I'm going to share my screen here. So there we are. There's Canada's map of arts and learning. So our website here, we've been working on the map for more than 4 years now. We have about 9,000 people on the map and 9,000 contacts, organizations, artist educators, schools. And we really, if you are not yet on the map, we encourage you to get on there. We have recently launched some new non-map a new non-map interface, because the map, as you can see, we do have a lot of contacts on there. It can be a little overwhelming. It also can take a while to load, so it does become a bit of an accessibility issue for people who maybe don't have fast internet speeds. So we've created this non-map interface and just newly launched it. Basically right here, you can also find it on the tab for the map. So if you're looking for information that's on the map, you can get it quite easily through this interface here. And you go through indicating if you're an artist. So for example, if you're an artist who wants to do a school tour, so you can look in here and you can filter it out by your province. And these are schools that have indicated that they do work with artists, and they do have tours or performances or residencies. So that's a good resource for you. Also, if you're looking for mentorship, or if a teacher is looking for an artist to bring into the school, they can search here, parents who are looking for classes or private lessons for their children. Also adults who are looking for lessons, or youth. Anything that is on the map, anything that you have filled out in your profile will show up here in this very specific search option. Something that's new as of COVID, we have really been promoting online, or promoting people who are doing online learning, online online lessons, online classes, and of course that has just exploded as so many people are offering it now. So that is also available here in this resources. This also is in this tab here. So these, if anybody's looking for digital learning resources, you can pull up this page here and it'll pull up. So for instance, all of these people offer online classes or lessons. And also featured projects is another thing that you can add to your profile. And it'll show up on your profile, but it'll also be show up here on this page, which is also filterable. So lots of ways to be discovered on our website. And I'll just give you a quick overview. So for instance, here's the VSO School of Music's profile. And you can see that they have filled out their profile or responded when we let them know, because there's two ways to get on the map. If we research you and then we'll send you an email, say you're on the map, fill out your profile, or if they fill it out themselves and they get that verified mark and they show up first in all the search results. And you can see that they have added all of their contact information so that they can connect. And they offer online instruction, so they show up in that search. And then you can see the community programs, school programs that they offer, and the artistic disciplines, as well as people who work with the VSO. You can see the community connections right here. I'm sure there are many more, but these are people who have profiles on the map. And they could also have a featured project listed here as well. So really want to encourage you to get on the map. We will be sending links after this. So when we do a follow-up email, but I don't want to spend any more time on that. You can certainly reach out with any questions to me or to Lynne. But it is a really good tool to help increase your discoverability and just connections with the public. We're always improving it to make sure that it is working as such. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our wonderful panelists today. So first off, we've got Angela Elster, who's the president and CEO of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra. Wave, Angela. And we have Gillian Gibbs, who's the director of the VSO School of Music. And Louise Ironside, the director of marketing and communications for the VSO School of Music. And Tim Borlase, who's the founder of the Labrador Creative Arts Festival. And by the way, Tim and Angela are also board members for the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning. So we're delighted that they're part of this.
To be on board.
We also have Sandra Broomfield, who is the festival coordinator for the Labrador Creative Arts Festival, and Jamie Lewis, who's a film producer with the Labrador Creative Arts Festival. Welcome, everyone. We're absolutely delighted that you're here. And now we will dive right in. So we'll start with the VSO School of Music. So first off, please tell us about your organization and your arts education programming before the pandemic.
Well, thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Larry. It's so great to be here amongst friends and to meet new friends. I'll begin as the leader for both the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra and the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra School of Music. We were doubly hit by COVID-19, and it's an interesting synergy here. The Vancouver Symphony Orchestra is Canada's third largest orchestra and the largest arts organization in Western Canada. And we're entering our 103rd year. I have not been the leader for 103 years, just saying. And the School of Music is Canada's only music school that was founded by an orchestra as a community school. And it's just celebrating its 10th anniversary. So we have these, these two pillars, 103 years in this brand new school that's really innovative and forward thinking. And they are two separate organizations, but we bridge these two organizations and leverage the best of possible worlds. So of course, March 2020, an arts organization like the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, which like many of you, is a performing arts organization, and the revenues are basically ticket sales. So March 15th, 2020, $7 million in ticket sales flew into the ethers. And I was on the 5th floor in my office and went down to the 3rd floor where the school offices are and said, we are going to have to close. And it was the middle, I know Gillian and Louise will be talking about it, but it was the middle of spring break and we needed to shut down. What was really interesting is neither the symphony orchestra nor the school was deeply embedded in virtual performances or virtual learning. But in both cases, our strategic plan, which is called Cascade of Choice, had a future of digitization. For instance, we're partners with Cadenza, which is a practice app, and our faculty are using Cadenza, which was born at Queen's University, where Larry used to be a pillar. So cadenzapracticeapp.com helps young people practice at home, motivated to practice and communicate with their teachers. On the symphony side, just as the doors closed, we had our first live stream in 102 years. We just experimented with Beethoven's 5th and Beethoven's 7th. So we weren't embedded in technology, but we had a long-term vision to have technology as part of what we do.
Great, thank you, Angela. So I'll turn it over to the Labrador Creative Arts Festival. Can you tell us about your programming before the pandemic?
Sure. And if I could have the map, that would be great. The Labrador Creative Arts Festival is 45 years old this year, and it was formed in 1975 because I've shown you the map here because of the very much the distances between communities and also the makeup of the communities, and also because the communities were the school system was divided into religious boards. So the opportunity for students to actually get to meet each other in another community was very much challenged. And the communities represent a huge, although they're very, very dispersed. This is all the communities in Labrador. There are, I think, 23 of them. They're very dispersed ethnically and by the fact that almost all of them, when we first started the festival, were not connected by road. So we used air travel to get to and from the festival. So the communities in the north are predominantly Innu and Inuit. The communities on the southeast coast are Nunatulvut, which is a mix between Inuit and Métis. The communities in central Labrador were, most of them were connected by road, but they were not connected to the communities in Labrador West, which are mining communities. So when the festival was started, our orientation was on the creation of writing plays which reflected those communities. So, and continues to be to this day. So people would fly into Happy Valley Goose Bay in the center and perform their plays. And at the same time, there would be approximately 15 to 20 visiting artists that would meet with them for a week and deliver workshops. So they would perform their own original script and they'd get workshops by these visiting artists. The visiting artists would also fly one or two to each of the other communities during that week. So the weather, the planes were always weather permitting because there was no, and still are. It's very difficult mountainous terrain, and it's not always safe to land. Also, the internet is very, especially in northern and southeastern Labrador, unpredictable. So sometimes it's impossible to do anything virtually, which we found out during this festival. So the festival is comprised of stage and school performances, an exhibition of student photography, which is sent in advance to the festival, the publication of the student scripts every year. It has opportunities for sound and lighting teaching, because almost all of these communities, which are very small, less than 800 people, most of them, do not have proper performance spaces. So they get sound and lighting support opportunities at the major festival. And they have workshops in theater, music, writing, dance, visual art, circus, puppetry, improvisation, new media, and film by 15 to 20 professional artists. And also there are community-based projects which happen over an extended period of time, and we had one of those this year. So the idea of hosting this festival was really something that we couldn't aspire to, we didn't feel. But both Sandra and I were convinced that somehow we could continue this 45-year history. So I'm going to show very briefly now a 1-minute video of an artist who is Nellie Winters from Makkovik. She's just received the Order of Newfoundland and Labrador for her craft work, her book illustration, and her storytelling. So you'll see an idea of the kind of artists, local artists, combined with artists from all over Canada that we hire. Okay. Is there any audio or?
One year we stayed in the dark and had Christmas out there, and there'll be the Christmas drop, first one, 1952. And so everybody was getting excited. Couldn't sleep in the night, the children, waiting for the Christmas drop to come. And me and we named differently in the book, but that was me and Christy. When the plane, the big DC-3 was circling around and dropping, we was all up on the side of the bank and everybody out watching. We was too close to where they was going to drop the parcels, and when the parcel dropped, it broke open and the juice went everywhere, orange juice and stuff. So we got some on us even. It didn't cover us, but they were a little stretched in the book. And but everybody got a little something Christmas time then from the drop. I looked after it. She used to look after everything, the post office, stuff like that.
So everything that you got.
And I got a dolly with it, which I was wishing for.
And everything you got in the drop?
Yeah.
That was yours gifts.
Everything came in the drop, toys and stuff. There was nothing like that in the store down there them days. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm leaving this next part of the story to Sandra, which I guess she'll answer the second question.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. I also want to mention, if anyone has questions, we're going to do a Q&A afterwards. So please do, there's a Q&A at the bottom there. Please enter your questions in there, and then afterwards we'll get to them. So yes, for the second question, take us back to the onset of the pandemic. What measures did you take from March to June of last year to connect with learners? And we'll start with the VSO. I don't know who wants to handle that. Gillian?
I'll start with that. Thanks. So when Angela mentioned that during at the beginning of our spring break of last year that we had to close our doors, as did most organizations around British Columbia at that time, and we had a little moment of feeling really scared and not knowing what to do. And then straight away went, okay, how are we going to keep this going? How are we going to keep the lessons and classes and all of our learners continuing to learn and all of our teachers continuing to teach? So we felt some really heavy responsibility immediately to get it going. And we had, in fact, about a week prior, sort of seeing that this was perhaps coming, myself and one of my colleagues came in on a Sunday and had organized a little trial Zoom class for one of our signature programs, our Mini Music Makers program, which is for babies up to age 6, so early learning. And I had corralled some of my nieces and nephews and my children at home, and I was here in the VSO school, and we did this trial Zoom class, and we very fortunately had the year prior had worked on a big project for early learning, which involved a whole bunch of digital resources. So I, as a teacher, I teach early learning as well, and I had quite a lot of experience delivering to camera for our digital resources, which are still available on our website, and was actually wonderful and continues to be wonderful to be able to point people towards some of that, those resources that remain on our website. But I had no idea how it would work in the Zoom format. But we did this trial class and it worked really beautifully. And I remember after that class, this feeling of kind of excitement and nervousness, but thinking, we can do this. If we have to do this, we can do this. And the next week we realized we had to do this. And as Angela mentioned, we had for some time had digital learning on the horizon. We had, experienced the creation of some of these digital resources, and it was something that we were, wanting to move towards. We had begun a relationship with the Cadenza practice app. But of course we were just, as everyone else was, thrown into the deep end, on a dime. And so that week we were lucky that it was during spring break that we were closed down. We had to halt some of our camps, our in-person camps that had started. But we had a little bit of time to kind of get our teachers ready, to build resources for our teachers, to reach out, to do trial Zoom meetings, trial lessons with our faculty. And, initially I would say it was about 50-50 with our faculty in terms of those who were really on board and were saying, yeah, we're going to try this, we're going to go for it. And those who said, well, it's probably only going to be a few weeks, and so we'll just wait, won't we? And said, I'm not going to do the online thing. So we forged ahead with those who were willing to, jump on board. And one of the things we did immediately was to repurpose many of our staff members. So we have a team of 8 full-time staff people at the VSO School of Music. A couple of those whose jobs are directly linked to the facility, whether it's the buildings manager or the person in charge of rentals of the spaces. And so we knew straight away that those things for a period of time anyways were not going to be happening. So we got those members of staff immediately learning all about Zoom and learning all about our registration system and all the different things that it could do, so that they could be on board to support that work as soon as it happened. So that was something that was really key, and in fact has continued throughout, that we've had to just be really flexible with our staff roles, and things that people certainly were never in anyone's job description have become part of their, a really crucial part of their job. So after spring break, we launched into our spring term fully online. And I know Louise will talk in a little bit about the way in which we had to pivot in terms of marketing. But the programming side, we decided, because of the uncertainty, and of course at that time, everyone thought, oh, maybe it'll be a month, maybe to the end of the school year, but then we'll be back to normal. So we decided to offer offer our group classes in smaller chunks of time. We did sort of 2-week blocks or 4-week blocks, little packages of online courses. And that worked extremely well because of the uncertainty, but it also forced us a little bit to be very creative in terms of the programming, and for our faculty members to think creatively in terms of how they might program a 4-session music history course rather than our normal 10-week session. And that was just the beginning of this new kind of thinking on our feet, being creative, being able to roll things out really quickly. So it's forced us all into this, different way of working. And I think I am always trying to look for all of the positives and the silver linings, the COVID silver linings. And I think there were so many things in those initial days. I certainly didn't sleep very much for probably about a month because there was so much adrenaline, and it was like, we got to do this. How are we going to do this? And troubleshooting all the time, and being there to support our faculty members who, some of whom were much more able and willing to kind of go, okay, I'm going to troubleshoot myself, but many of whom required a lot of hand holding. And that, still continues, that we as a staff team have had to sort of embrace this. We are tech support, we are programmers, we are all of these things that the situation has sort of required us to be, but has also enabled us to be. So it's, there are a lot of exciting things that have come out of it for us as a staff team and for our faculty in terms of the creativity and the new things that have been brought to the table. Our private teaching remained online, and our group classes until the end of the school, the 2020-2021 school year. And we knew that summer, as we got towards summer, we knew that things would start opening up a little bit, or we hoped. That was sort of the word. And so we were planning for some in-person work to begin in the summer. But that term, the spring term, we did completely online, and we found a lot of success in that period with our online courses. So it was a very stressful time, but also a very, very exciting time. And it's really provided the foundation for the work that we are now continuing on to do.
Great, thank you so much, Gillian. And now I guess Sandra, take us back to the beginning of the pandemic and what you did. Oh, you're muted. Got to unmute. Yeah.
Sorry. A similar experience, I guess, a little bit different. I know when myself and Tim got together on the phone maybe in October, throwing around ideas that we can go virtual, it kind of sounded so easy to do. Yes, we can do that. We're going to go virtual. We'll get artists on board. We'll get them into classrooms and things like that. As I got into it, well, it turned out to be a little more challenging than what it sounded. So the first thing I kind of did was I went through all the visiting artist lists that we had prepared to see who we were going to have come to the Person Festival. And then I contacted them to see who was willing to join us virtually. Because as you know, not everybody is tech savvy or, have the skill set to be able to video themselves doing a session. So I had to find some artists then that were willing to jump on board virtually, who also felt comfortable video recording themselves or going live, because we gave them that option. So another thing that was different was that, the agreement, the Lcaf agreement contract, we had to kind of redesign that, because now we were going virtual, and we want to make sure that we were protecting the rights of each artist that we took on board, to make sure, that we weren't going to send these sessions that they were going to send us and use them elsewhere. So, it was finding, like, there was a fine line there as into the do's and don'ts when you're in the virtual world. So that was a bit challenging. And then also we got into a little bit of an issue then too with the school board here. We had to find a way that we could be into the classrooms, and that the school board would let us into the classrooms. So that entailed every artist then signing a virtual visitor agreement from the NLSD, the school board here in Newfoundland Labrador, to say that, they honor the protocols that the NLSD had lined up for virtual visitors. And also we had to get them to sign then too, this to be aware that when you're video recording your session, to be aware of what's going on behind you so that we didn't have any accidents or anything like that. So there was a lot of little nitpicky things that came up as we were going along. But, the first thing that we did was get the artists on board, and I was gung-ho, excited, getting them all down. And as I was getting further in, I was thinking, what am I going to do with all this? Fine, I got all the artists, I got all the sessions, but I don't know what to do with it. And it was just pure luck that I was talking to one artist because she was going to come on board with us. And she mentioned another lady's name to me. And I said, okay. And then she said, now her husband is techie. So I happened to call her. They were on board. And then it was my luck. James Lewis came on board with us because I think the key to the festival, being successful, the virtual festival that we offered was the tech. Because that is the way that you got it out. Because we had to go through ATIP a lot, that we also had to make sure that our YouTube channel, which was a platform we were going to use to house all the sessions that we had, and we did end up with 15 artists and groups send in recordings for us. And I think we ended up with 85 sessions on the Lcaf YouTube channel. That is phenomenal. When you look at it, it is phenomenal to see the amount of work, and the quality of work is just it was mind-blowing. It was awesome. So after we got James, then things got a little bit more complicated. But I was okay then because I knew that I had James on my side. So that was a real crucial key, was to find that tech support. Then we had to think, yes, we're going to have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is going to be set to private. So not anybody anywhere else could come and see it. And that was for the safety of the students, but also for the integrity of the artists, that their sessions that we paid them for were just for our use only. So the YouTube channel was set to private, which meant that teachers had to email me to get an invite to the channel. But then I wanted to know how I could get that information out to all of the teachers that we have here in Labrador. So principals, I know principals are overwhelmed with all the work that comes at them. I was a principal myself at the primary school here in Goose Bay for 10 years. But God love them all. They did take on the task that every email I sent, they would then send on to their staffs. So that was the main way that we managed to get word out to everybody as what was coming along. But I subscription flyer that had every artist in there and their bio, and then some special links about them, and all their workshop information and what you need it for. It was all there in that piece. So that was a very detailed piece of work that had to be precise, because that's what you were relying on, that everybody would get that piece of information and then be able to know what to do with it. We planned, we always plan to open up the festival January 27th, and we were only going to go for 2 weeks, right? We figured that would be enough, 2 weeks. However, 2 weeks came and I was getting some emails saying, that we weren't quite through. And then Newfoundland and Labrador closed for 2 weeks with the circuit breaker, because where we had an outbreak of COVID-19. So in between the jigs and the reels of everything, we closed April 1st. So we did stay up for a while, and, a lot of teachers did use the information and the sessions that were there. And all the feedback that I had received was awesome. Everybody loved it. Some people, the pictures that the kids sent from some of the sessions that they had done, it was a tremendous. So when I really sit back and look at what we created, it is something to be proud of at that time, because we didn't know what we were doing at first. We were just had a goal. We knew what we wanted. And by luck, we found one man to get us there. And at the end, it was it was successful. It was successful. Now, we did run into some issues, like Tim had said. I mean, you know, the communities here in Labrador, a lot of them are isolated up on the north coast. You can only get there by plane or skidoo or boat. And internet is very difficult. I know we had 2 visiting artists, actually, Aunt Nellie, who lives up on the coast in McCulvic. Her granddaughter was also a visiting artist teaching in Inuktitut. And she was trying to get her sessions that she had recorded to James, couldn't send them to James, ended up sending them to me via Facebook Messenger. And then I emailed them on to James. So, you know, we had to be very creative in finding ways to get things around. And I mean, James will tell you all the side that he did, and I love him every day for it. But overall, you know, it was a challenge, and I think it's something to be very proud of, that we took it on and we were successful.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sandra. So move on to the next question. And of course, there's overlapping within the answers and the questions, and that's great too. So with the start of the new school year, and I know the, what was, so with the VSO, what was your first official year of virtual arts and learning program? What did it include? And what worked best for you, and what was the response of the students with September, come September?
I'm going to just begin and hand this over to Gillian and Louise. Part of the synergy between the 2 organizations, the VSO and the VSO School of Music, is that the VSO has an education program, and it's got a long history, and very much like everything that everyone has described. What do we do for the public schools in British Columbia that have been part of this program? So we created, for the orchestra, we created an online platform called the concerthall.ca, so that we could keep the music going. And that was important to both organizations. Keep the music going, especially as a counterpoint to COVID-19 and the isolation and the stress and the anxiety. So keep the music going. So concerthall.ca is our virtual stage, and on that stage is the music room. And we created content for our public school system. And so if you go to the concerthall.ca, you'll find a lot of free and accessible tools in the music room for your students. So feel free to use them. And then, of course, the school is about teaching classes, ensembles, and individual lessons. So that's a completely different relationship online. Over to Gillian and Louise.
So as I mentioned before, we were sort of looking towards the summer and summer programming, which obviously preceded the sort of first full school year of in this new reality. And we were lucky in British Columbia that in the summer we were able to sort of expand a little bit. There was a little bit of opening. There was allowing for some indoor activity, obviously with physical distancing and masks, and also we were being highly encouraged to do outdoor activities. So we faced a little bit of a challenge in that our school doesn't have any outdoor space, but we immediately reached out to the Vancouver Parks Board and explored the idea of offering classes in the parks in Vancouver. So that was something that we did through the summer, again, with our sort of signature early childhood program. It seemed like a good place to start and to try that work. It was very, very popular. We also did offer our in-person summer day camps for elementary school age children, and in a much reduced way. We had to spend that time of the spring term figuring out all of our classrooms, what their limits would be in terms of how many people could fit with physical distancing, and sort of tape out, spots on the floor and all of that. So we had a big job to do there, but we did run almost the whole summer weekly day camps for elementary school age. And that was actually a wonderful way of us sort of testing what would work for the school year, with the hopes that we would be able to continue that level of in-person instruction. And luckily in BC, we were able to do that. So the school year began in a hybrid way. We were continuing to offer a number of online classes, but we also were able to offer in-person classes. And of course, what everybody's been talking about in the music education sector is the ability to play together or sing together. And that is a huge challenge with any of the online platforms. So in that period of the spring term and the summer, our ensembles had been doing all sorts of wonderful videos where each child, recorded their own part and then sewed them together, and all those hours of work, as we all know now, creating those virtual orchestras of individual parts and sewing them all together. But some beautiful work came out of that period of time, and I shed many a tear over these beautiful videos that would come of the kids, in their own homes, recording their own little part with their headphones on, and then them all coming together. And but of course, we were, hopeful that we could do something in person and get them playing together again. We have a very, very active string orchestra program here at the VSO School of Music, and our top level string ensemble, Sinfonietta, those kids were just so desperate to get back together. So we created a rehearsal rota system for them where they're in sort of 3 groups, but only 2 groups can rehearse at a time because that's the maximum number that can fit in our largest space, our recital hall. So there's a very complicated rota system where they're not ever all together, except when we're able to rent larger spaces, which we've done several times throughout the year, to enable them to come all together and to record recitals to be able to put out. So that was really, really important to us, that we were able to, if we possibly could, allow those kids to come and play together as much as possible. Our chamber music program has been able to function in person, and we have pretty much the same number of ensembles as we had previously, coming and rehearsing and getting coachings weekly. There's been a real, the staff team have had to struggle with figuring out room allocations. We only have a certain number of large rooms in our facility. We have a lot of teaching studios and practice rooms, which obviously are not large enough for distancing. So a lot of jigsaw puzzle putting together of figuring out how things are going to be allocated to rooms. Of course, all of the teachers want to be in the largest rooms, and so we continue to struggle with that, but we've been able to make it work. And so alongside those in-person activities that we were able to offer, we have continued to have a really robust program of online learning, and both private lessons and groups and ensembles. And again, as I mentioned earlier, our faculty have been really creative with the programs that they've come up with, and we've actually expanded our music history and music appreciation programs, which had historically happened in quite a small way in person in our facility, but the online music appreciation classes have been just a huge hit, and we've been able to really expand that program, and our faculty members who are teaching those classes have just been able to go crazy with all of their ideas and what they've been able to deliver. So that's been really exciting, and we absolutely will be continuing that work into the future, continuing to offer it online. We are I think this is probably bleeding into the next question, but we are looking into the future in terms of being able to offer hybrid opportunities. So where we can have, and we've experimented with this a little bit, where we can have a small number of people in a physical class in person, but also be live streaming that or having it as a Zoom class as well. All of our in-person classes have had the option of being able to Zoom in. So our instructors have had the Zoom running, and if a family is isolating or not able to come in, they can log into the Zoom rather than coming into the facility. That was one of the really important things for us, because of course, if anybody has any symptoms at all, we didn't want them coming into the facility. So being able to offer this kind of hybrid thing, and that's again been a learning curve for faculty of how to be able to teach people in front of you, but also teach people on the screen. But I think that people have really embraced that, and it's been exciting to be able to say, even thinking in the past that if a child was, had a cold and wasn't able to come in, they would miss their class or miss their rehearsal. And now, like, that will never happen again, because they'll always be able to log in digitally. So, some of these things, we think, oh, well, why didn't we do that before? And, it's just an exciting development. Even when we're able to go back to having full numbers and full classes in our rooms. So so the year's been a real sort of hybrid. One of the things I didn't mention earlier was that very early on, we began a project to retrofit our recital hall to put cameras and fixed microphones in to allow for live streaming in the hall. So that when that project completed in the summer, it's been very, very popular for recording recitals. I think one of the things we've been very conscious of is being able to continue to have those performing opportunities for our kids and adults, because they need those exciting things to work towards. And we also have experienced the joy of having those recitals delivered digitally, because we've had grandparents in other countries logging in to watch their grandchild, who of course never would have been able to come to an in-person recital because they don't live in the same place. So, some of these things, again, even when we're back to being able to do in-person concerts and recitals, we will have a hybrid model where those are also able to be viewed online.
Thank you so much, Gillian. That's really encouraging. So I think we're going to, I guess, Jamie at this point. Is it Jamie was talking about what worked best and what was the response of the students, or maybe it's Sandra?
If I could here, just for a second, there's one thing we forgot to mention, Sandra and I, and that is that all this worked really well, except we didn't have the student component because students couldn't travel with their original theater piece, which is the essential feature of the festival. So what we've done, and Jamie will talk about that, is sort of made an alternative way of presentation. So Jamie, I hope you were going to talk about that, the last project about the community. So on to Jamie. Our theme was respect for this festival. Every festival has a theme, and this year it was respect. Go ahead. Jane.
I'm going to unmute. How's that? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thank you for having me. I think Tim talked really well. Obviously, his experience that didn't see how vast an area for the children and students of the festival, Labrador. That was really great. And then Sandra, thank you for the kind words, but I think Sandra also spoke really well about trying to get the material out to people, but be really respectful and really to protect the students and the teachers and the audience, especially the children, the students, to make sure they were protected on a platform where they could be free to express themselves. And also partake, and then also to respect and value what the artists were contributing. And the artists, I mean, that was daunting. I mean, you guys have probably all experienced it too, is that the artist is so happy to be part of the festival and so honored to be asked to come. And then Labrador is such an exotic place that this year they can't physically come. They have to do it online, but they're still happy to do it. But all of a sudden now we have to become, the artists have to become filmmakers. they have to record something and edit it together where it's coherent. And if they do flub it, or that's not exactly their discipline, you might be the best oboe player in the world or in Canada, but it doesn't mean you're the best filmmaker. And you still want it to look really good. So all of a sudden you become a filmmaker. And I mean, that's a challenge. And I think in my role was trying to help everybody make whatever it was that they needed to get made, to ingest that material, figure out some way that they could get that material to me so that I could then get it onto the festival's YouTube channel. And so again, you had to be respectful that their work was protected, and that maybe what they were making wasn't in their best light or the quality of what they wanted to do, but to be assured by us at the festival that don't worry, it's protected, it's all private, it's really the children get to see this. So then that eased them up. It wasn't like this was going to be taken and then presented to the stage. So there we had a challenge all of a sudden of trying to figure out a way to keep it all private so that all the children could view it and the artists could contribute, knowing that the children got to benefit from it, but it wasn't just sent out all over the rest of the world. The amazing thing is, though, with these platforms, and we ended up using Google in the end and Zoom, the platforms with Google is very difficult under the hood to try and keep everything private. And that took an awful lot of work because they really do want, and again, I don't mean to be cynical or anything like that, but we are the commodity. The end users in these platforms, for the most part, whether it's Facebook or Google, we are the end users. So at the end of the day, I guess my point is we just tried to keep it really simple. Simple is a loaded thing because it's a lot of work. It's very complex trying to keep it simple. But just look at who the end users were. And in this case, it was the teachers who had to hit a button so that it could be projected or seen on a screen for their students. So it was the students and the teachers were the end users. And before we could distribute it that way, so we had to come up with a plan there, is we still had to ingest all this material from the artists. And some artists were sort of used to doing this, and they would use DSLR cameras and some microphones, and they were recorded and they'd edit it together in an editing program. But some people, no, filmmaking was not their thing. So we had to go, well, maybe the production quality isn't that great, but if they're used to using Zoom after 7, 8, 9 months of a pandemic now, if that's what they feel comfortable with, let them use Zoom. So when I say keep it simple, don't fight it. If an artist or a contributing person to your meeting, your workshop, in this case, a festival, if that's what they feel comfortable doing, don't add any extra burden to them. Let them do what's kind, and then figure out some way to distribute it to the people that really do need. And in this case, it was the children in the classrooms who need to see this material. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what kind of did you get a sense of what the response of the children was and the response of the teachers too?
Only through Sandra and then finally chatting with Tim, but yeah, from what I understand, they're really excited about it. I mean, I was fortunate over the years. There's a really important reason the province is called Newfoundland and Labrador. Labrador is a whole other exotic place altogether. And I have been so fortunate with my work, and once or twice with the Labrador Creative Arts Festival as well. And once or twice through an Arts Smarts program that the government initiates here to get artists out into communities around the province, is I have been several times, my work has taken me up to Labrador, not enough, but it has. So I had a sort of sense of what they were trying to accomplish and the needs of the communities and the needs of school children up there. So I'm not really sure how I would have done it if I hadn't have already had a bit of experience like that. So yeah, I think it was just sort of knowing who the end user was and trying to figure out what's the best way to distribute that material up to them. And from what I understand from Sandra and Tim is that, yeah, the response was really positive. On very short notice, and over a couple of months, we managed to pull something together by completely making it up as we went along, just out of love and out of passion. But again, and when I say that, making it up, you got to understand, I work with really high industry stuff. on a regular basis all over the world globally, everybody's making it up. Like, give yourself a break. Like, every platform, every piece of technology is brand new. And the moment you sort of figure out where all the buttons are to hit, then they just come out with a new release and they change all the buttons. And it's like that for every working professional in Hollywood, in the UK, Sydney, Australia, it doesn't matter. We all, as professional technicians, as well as creatives, we go through that all the time. So if you're ever frustrated on a Zoom meeting, don't worry. You know, professionally, we, you know, as techies, we deal with this stuff all the time. It's just the thing, it's that a lot of the people designing these platforms and working at the offices in Silicon Valley or wherever they are not really the end users. You know, they're not the professionals who are the filmmakers or the musician or the visual artist or the arts administrator who's trying to distribute everybody's talents to an audience.
That's
We
right,
had
James.
communities submit a film for the Arts Festival, and
Yes, that's
that,
what I was going to talk about there now, Tim.
okay.
The theme this year was respect. So all the artists did sessions on the theme of respect, and we really wanted the students to be involved in something. So we set out a challenge for students in each community to do a film or a slideshow of their community to depict how they respect their community and what respect means to them. And once again, God love James, because I had all these sessions or all these films and slideshows come into me that I wanted to be able to send back out to every school in Labrador, Northern Labrador, Southern Labrador, West and Central, that they would be able to see each other and visit each other, because Labrador is a very large landmass, and we would have students up in Hopedale who never know what it's like down in Mary's Harbor in Southern Labrador. So this virtual community tour would give students an opportunity in every community to have a virtual visit with each other. So James is now in the process of compiling all that into the same platform. As he said, I mean, it was a great learning process for us because there are so many platforms. So it's things that you would keep in mind for next time. And we did learn that we will have a virtual piece to the festivals in the future, because this way we can reach more students through Labrador than just the ones that come to Goose Bay for the plays. But now we do have a clip of a video there from Natwashish, if you can play it. And that's the students in Natwashish in grade 9 showing respect for their community.
Let's see, here we go. Great, thank you. That's wonderful. Well, I know we're supposed to have 2 more questions, but actually you've all covered the last one, which is what you're going to do in the future. So that's great. We'll just touch on briefly, and I know there's 2 very different kind of contexts here, but Louise, just in regards to the discoverability, kind of what worked as far as marketing in this strange new world that you had to deal with.
Hi, thank you. So for us at the school, getting out of the gate first and fast was super important. As Gillian and Angela mentioned, we had just started spring break when the school closed down, I think on the Tuesday, and it would have been kind of the tempting, safe option to just refund everybody's spring break camps and take that time until April 1st to kind of plan, okay, how are we going to do this online programming? But instead, we offered those people, most of those people, the chance to continue their spring break camp online or offer them an alternative. So we really did like a straight turnaround to go to online programming. And that was super useful for us because one, it gave us some press, some local press and some national press, and it gave us good cachet in the community because we were there for people. So many organizations had to kind of disappear and step away. And also it was really good practice for us. You know, we got to see, okay, how does this online programming work, and iron out the creases, and also see the ways in which for some people it can be better than in-person programming. It's not like a sort of a poor comparison, a poor, alternative for people. So we found that we had tons of older people engaging in our music appreciation courses, not just because of COVID, but for instance, people who had to move out of the city, people that were caring for somebody or had mobility issues. They wouldn't have been able to get to in-person classes, but they really enjoyed the opportunity to connect online for the music appreciation. We found that for some children, being able to do classes in their own home setting where they were comfortable meant that they were way more confident, and they enjoyed it more and they could focus more. So being able to see how that was working for people and then being able to share that was really important, and I think helped our numbers. I think our messaging in the early days, honesty and empathy were really key for all the communications that we were doing. Being honest, okay, this is what we look like right now. This is what we have quickly put together for you, and empathy that everyone's going through this shared kind of trauma together. Being really flexible with people was super important. And I have here from March 20th, so just really a couple of days after the school closed, Gillian started doing a daily Teacher Gillian's mini music video for families with young children. So that was a free resource. She was just, again, it was good practice for her and good to be able to show other teachers, how you can communicate via video. But those were super popular, and I think people were really grateful for this free resource. And that meant that the school in general and our website got shared organically a ton, and people found that really useful. Another thing that we did that was kind of useful for the community was start virtual musical birthday parties really early on, which people gave us great testimonials from those, because any kid with a birthday in that March, April, May, June, we're still doing them now because we're still got a ton of restrictions. People were so grateful that we offered away, like, we'll send out the invitations and we'll handle all the Zoom stuff. You don't need to worry about that if you don't use Zoom normally. And kids were able to have parties with family attending that lived in other countries. So again, that was really great, good news stories for us. We I think Gillian touched a little bit on the programming side. The lead-in planning time was extremely short. So we would launch programs with like 1 week's notice to fill them. But they would fill because, especially back in the early days of the pandemic, people were really into sharing these opportunities when, you know, suddenly you didn't have any classes anymore. And, you know, we had a lot of help and support from the community to share those options. And so, yeah, we had more uptake online in a lot of areas than we had done in person. And we did reach new communities, you know, nationally and internationally. We have students taking part from, you know, Toronto and Vancouver Island and the US and the UK, New Zealand, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Hungary. You know, it's a small portion of our students, but it's so great to see, you know, somebody in Hungary was looking for recorder group classes and they found it in Vancouver, and they're so grateful to have found that. We used money that we would have spent on physical brochures that we stopped doing on online advertising, but probably more effective than that was just sharing these opportunities in like social media groups, Facebook groups for parents and music lovers or music teachers to give them ideas. And our one of our youth string ensembles, Sinfonietta, they really, you know, just took off running with the social media idea. They kept as an ensemble for that spring term of 2020, even though we weren't allowing any in-person ensemble classes. And what they did with their time was record videos, start social media channels. They made Meet the Instruments videos for young children that we were able to add to our own website resources. They started a podcast. They did a ton of stuff. It was like very inspiring for them and gave them a lot of good experiences. If we have time, I have a like 1 minute video that they made right at the start, but I don't have to play it because I know we are really running out of time.
No, sure, go ahead. Yeah.
This is from the early days of the, where's it gone? It's from the early days of the pandemic. They're much more professional now with their recordings and their output, but I just thought it was great that they managed to put this together. So let me share. Can you see that? I think we all cried when we saw that video the first time.
Beautiful.
And we're lucky we have so many families that all learn instruments together. So that's why there was able to be duos and trios in those videos.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you. So we want to be mindful of everyone's time. We have 2 questions in the Q&A, so we'll just get to those, and then, oh, now we've got 3. So from the Young People's Theatre, I would be interested to hear more about how Gillian's park-based summer classes went. How long was each camp? What was the general goal? And were they full day? What ages? So maybe Gillian has put her email there. So if you have any questions regarding, one specifics, maybe Gillian can, maybe you can reach out to Gillian. That seems like a multi, a big answer there. Another one would be and by the way, somebody has been asking if you mind sharing your email addresses, if the panelists mind. So you can either put them, make sure that if you're putting them in the chat, make sure you put them to all attendees, or else if it's okay, we will send it in the follow-up email, if you're okay with that. Another question is, are many of the schools open to Zoom, or do they have other methods they are using? Maybe Sandra, or we're dealing with the schools there. Were they using Zoom, or Jamie? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I up?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the curious thing. It's different for everybody. We got lucky, I say that word lightly, that a lot of the email, a lot of the under the hood stuff that happens at the school board level turns out in school here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And again, the festival is not that. They've just got a long history of doing things in conjunction with the schools. Tim would be able to speak better about that. But it turned out under the hood, they were actually a Google operation. They weren't Amazon World Service, web services, they were Google. So we realized the easiest platform to use then was the Google services, whether it was Classroom, Google Meet. We didn't use it afterwards, we could have, but definitely YouTube, because YouTube is Google. So that was sort of, you do your research and figure out who's the user, the school children, the teachers. So we got lucky. Is it the best platform? No, it's not. There's others I like, but they all have their limitations. So when I say we got lucky, it's because it worked. Zoom was the other thing too. It wasn't that we did a lot of, and again, I say that because inside the school systems, and I'm sure this happens all over the world, but in Newfoundland and Labrador, Facebook is not something that's really normally allowed inside the school curriculum. But Google has a whole educational side to get markets into schools and help schools develop programs. So that's fine. Google was doing it there. And Zoom was allowed in, but we didn't actually have to do anything Zoom. When I say Zoom, it wasn't live that they were doing. It was the artists were doing the presentation for the most part and recording to Zoom because that's what they were comfortable with. So once it was recorded, they had to save it then to their desktop or to their computer, and they were happy with it. They could even edit that if they wanted to. And once they were happy with it, then I had to figure out a way that they could get it to me so that I could upload it to YouTube, to our private channel, so that the teachers would end up with a private link so that they could view it. If that answers your question. But again, every situation for every festival, workshop, convention, whatever you guys are doing, those variables will all change. So just keep it simple, research the different platforms over the months leading up to your event and sort of figure out what works best for you. And yeah, if you're on short notice, then go simple. If Zoom works, it works, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. One last question. I think this will be of interest to many people, but regarding the music lessons and online programs, how did students who were previously in an in-person basis react in terms of attendance and engagement towards their practice? Was there any noticeable change in motivation? I guess none of you are necessarily teachers, but did you have any kind of feedback from the teachers on this? How were the students reacting to online lessons and classes?
I can start. I am a teacher as well, so I have a little bit of personal experience, but a lot of feedback experience. So, you know, I think it has really varied. We have certainly seen some growth in terms of new students coming because the lessons and classes are online. In terms of motivation, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's been so key to have those things to work towards. So the online recitals, or the ability to come into our school and record their piece, which is then put into a virtual recital, has been really, really important, because I think it's it's difficult to continue that motivation going without having those events. A lot of our teachers have done virtual studio recitals, and I think that's been something that pretty much universally, in terms of private lessons, it's been recognized that we need to offer opportunities for those students to perform, whether, I mean, at the moment that's all virtual. You know, I think as a teacher, it's required a lot of creativity in terms of how lessons are delivered. So things have to be done differently. And we've had to, you know, I teach violin, and I am very used to playing with my students. When they get frustrated with something, I'll say, okay, let's play it together. And of course, over Zoom, that's not something we can do. So I've had to just shake it up in terms of how the structure of the lesson, really, to keep them engaged and to keep them motivated and not getting discouraged by not being able to have that playing together. We have, because we are able to do some in-person things with my couple of, I only teach a little bit, but I have a couple of students, and one of them, we do 1 week online and 1 week in person. And that, I know many of our teachers have done a model like that, where they maybe teach, you know, 3 lessons online, and then once a month they have an in-person lesson. And that's felt kind of safer for everybody to not have so much face-to-face contact, but have a little bit. And that for a lot of teachers, that's been really, really important to keep that face-to-face going for those students who are used to that and who really thrive on being able to be playing together and have that face-to-face. So that's been our experience.
I think it comes back to what Jamie said, which is we have all had to adapt our teaching and our learning to become little filmmakers, whether we're good at it or not, but we're being creative in a new medium. It's completely different.
Yeah, thank you. Jamie, you got your hand raised virtually there. Did you mean to say?
Hi.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, no, just really quick. I have to run off and pick up my little children at school. This has been amazing. Thank you. I just want to, before I leave, and I'm saying this as an artist, not as an employee of the festival or a contractor for the festival, but it's really, don't get too good at this. And it's not because, well, we hope the pandemic comes to an end. This technology is amazing. We can have contributions from artists and skilled individuals all over the world and get together. That's a really beautiful, really, really powerful thing. But you never want to be in a position where your funders say, well, why does somebody need a plane ticket? Why do they need a food honorarium? Why do they need a hotel room? Can't they just do this all online? But that interaction of people getting together, as you just said, it is so important, whether you're teaching a student one-on-one, like you had just said, or if it's a festival situation where an artist gets to come in and work with a classroom, or maybe 5 or 8 classrooms of 20 or 30 children. I mean, that's a lot of interaction, and that human interaction is so important. So that's the other thing too. It's amazing, this technology, but we should never get so good at it that our funders or the people sort of given the funding for this is, why don't you just do this online? We got to really stress that the physical interaction is still even better than a lot of the online stuff we're able to do.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, a lot of people in the chat are agreeing with you there. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our panelists and to all the attendees. This has been incredible. It will be, we have recorded it. It will be on our website, and we'll be sending an email tomorrow. Please do check your junk mail, because sometimes it seems to go there, but we'll send you an email with the links to the video, also with a survey, and just want to get your feedback on this and other things. Also, please do get on the map. But thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
And thanks to the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning for joining Coast to Coast.
Yes, coast to coast. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks.